Hello, my name is Dr. Chris Heeb, the Debt Doctor, and I welcome you to the Debt Doctor 911 podcast, where each week I, along with my dear friend and financial expert Richard Schaefer, will shift your focus from living paycheck to paycheck to a more solution-based process that will ultimately revolutionize your overall financial health. We will expose the hidden secrets about our financial system that banks and lenders never tell you about when it comes to getting rid of your debt and building your wealth. So make sure to listen every Thursday as we resuscitate your financial health and keep the lenders from flatlining your financial goals. All here on Debt Doctor 911. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Debt Doctor 911. My name is Dr. Chris Heeb, the Debt Doctor, and I have my distinguished financial expert and good friend, Richard Schaefer, with me today. How are you today, Richard?
Doing pretty good. I have a little bit of a hoarse voice today because I was speaking at a crypto event last night, and it was a little bit of a social event after, and it got so loud, everybody was asking questions, and I was trying to talk over the audience, and my voice is a little strained this morning, but good to catch up with you, my friend.
Yes. Once again, we're on the airwaves for our 11th podcast. And look, the mission of Debt Doctor 911 podcast is always to educate our listeners on the key factors to resuscitating your financial dreams, and also to discuss the key elements to living a debt-free life. So each podcast, and Richard, you know this, we are here to expose the banks and the lenders to their covert lending practices that will literally flatline your wealth building. And we are also here to help introduce valuable and proven remedies to help you, the listener, gain financial freedom. Now, you can always go to debtdoctor911.com to hear our past episodes and also to subscribe to our channel, or you can easily go to our favorite podcast platform, such as Apple or Spotify, and look for Debt Doctor 911 and simply subscribe there so you get every single one of our episodes as we go through the rest of this year. So today's show, last show, Richard, we had a special guest, Carlos Gutierrez, and he talked about how he got out of debt using our program. He also talked about the student loan issue with his wife and the fact that they were able to decrease the monthly student loan payment, significantly decrease, freeing up significant amounts of discretionary income. And as a result, Richard, and this is really exciting, we are going to have a special guest on our show today in our final segment, the CEO of MyLoanSense, Catalina Kaiyoorowongs, and she's going to come on and we're going to interview her about her very unique program that she started, I believe, a few years ago in regards to student loan debt and how you can easily get your student loan debt evaluated to determine if some changes can be made that will help improve your financial situation. So I'm really excited about that, Richard.
I really am. I was fortunate enough to connect with her latter part of last year, and we just knew there'd be some incredible synergy. She was really up to some big things. She's a Michigan girl, like myself. I think she's living down in Florida now, so it was a little bit of serendipity there. But she's just a brilliant woman. Went to school at Michigan, so of course, in my mind, that automatically makes her bright. But nonetheless, she's really got an incredible program to help people navigate through that process. So it's going to be an incredible honor to have her on the show today.
Yeah, it is. And I can't wait to ask her a few questions about, how does this program work? What do you need to do to get an analysis done? And then what's great about this program, because I've looked into this, because, Richard, I deal with doctors all the time. They have unbelievable amounts of student loan debt. Literally, we call it a death loan because they feel they're going to have to pay on this thing for the rest of their life. But her program and her company really gives a lot of hope to doctors across the country because they recognize how they can take what I would consider a debt service and really turn it into a monthly expense. And Catalina will talk about that. I'll definitely make sure I ask her that question. But when you can make that pivot and you can decrease the amount of money you pay per month, freeing up significant amount of discretionary income. And look, I'm talking about going from a $1,500 a month payment towards your student loans down to maybe a couple $100s a month. I mean, last week, our last podcast, Carlos talked about how his payments went down to just a couple $100 a month, saving them over $800 a month in
Yep.
discretionary income.
And being
That
able to take that money now and drive it toward these other debts was just incredible.
exactly. And then also the fact that you can accelerate the payoff of other debts and then start that process of building wealth. Okay. So we're going to go through those different steps on how you can, not only get analysis done for that particular for your student loan debt, but also then how we can incorporate that into our program. So make sure write this website down. This is where you're going to want to go after the show. It's slpayoff.com. SL for student loan, slpayoff.com. And that's going to put you right into MyLoanSense portal where you can give them some basic information and then they can put together multiple different options that you can choose from in order to help accelerate or not accelerate, but actually just make it much easier to make your student loan payments. But hey, Richard, a lot of stuff is going on in the financial industry. I was pulling up some interesting news here. And again, this just goes back to what we've always talked about is the banks, they are trying to do everything to just continue to keep us in debt. And this buy now, pay later craze is going even stronger because I saw that PayPal, it was set to acquire a Japan-based company for about $2.7 billion. And they're literally trying to gain a foothold not only in Japan's e-commerce market, which happens to be the third largest in the world, but it's all about educating people on these monthly payments. Okay, hey, just make this minimal amount of payment each month. If you want a certain item, they're making it so easy for people to get in debt.
Yeah.
I mean, the more and more I see this, the more and more I want to scream because it's constant. It's never changing and it's only getting worse. And as we see this, and we've talked about this so many times about the that's my fire alarm going off, everyone. I might have to
Oh,
jump out
great.
the window. Uh-oh. Um, wow.
Well,
Okay, so there was today is, I guess, the National Fire Alarm Testing Day, and they were going to come in and do a fire alarm test in our building. Oh, there it goes. It's gone. Okay, good. They were supposed to have done this morning, but apparently they're doing it now. Anyway, it just tells you, everyone, pay attention, okay? Because the storm that's coming, okay, financially is going to basically burn your house down. So, everyone, please listen to what we have to say. Things are not good right now financially. We see inflation that's going through the roof. We're seeing that all kinds of costs for basic goods are going up. Richard, this is becoming a freaking nightmare, and people need to pay attention and get their what in order.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm glad you kind of queued that up because Catalina is gonna know about give us some really incredible information on that. But let's just set the stage and the backdrop here a little bit of why this is even such a hot topic, right? You know, uh, you look at the accelerated pace that student loans have increased relative to just about everything else, right? They've increased three times the cost of living. So you start realizing that not only have schools become more expensive, but let's be honest, schools are a business just like banks. So schools are in the business of getting people to attend them, and that's not necessarily a crime in itself. But obviously, they've created more and more um, mentality that if you don't go to college, and that's a personal decision, but if you don't go to college, of course, somehow you're going to be homeless, and that's of course not true. But nonetheless, they've done a pretty good job of crafting that messaging. And of course, banks are also not a philanthropic endeavor, right? So as you said, they only make money if they're able to deploy and leverage money. And as we've talked about many times, it's not a matter of necessarily vilifying the banks because this is the way that business is done, but it's a matter of saying, how do we do the age old theory of imitation is the greatest form of flattery? How do we help to take these banking secrets and strategies and make people aware of them, but also so that they can deploy those same proven methodologies on their personal life as well, Chris?
Yes, you're absolutely right, Richard. And again, I can't emphasize the importance of our listeners to really pay attention and really start to think about exit strategy.
Hmm.
Okay. I mean, don't get so, banks are doing things for a reason. And like you said, it's all about making profits. Okay. It's all about putting your money in their pockets. And as a result, we continue to sit and get further and further in debt. And it doesn't have to be this way. I mean, I've spoken to so many people over the past, I guess, year now, and it amazes me how stubborn they are, okay, to want to at least take a look at what their future, their financial future could be, which is actually a good thing. Okay. And I know, Richard, you've talked about this in the past when you used to deal with in the insurance industry, right? Where you would sit down with someone and you go over their entire financial situation, but then they would bow out and say, you know what, it's not a good time. And then 4 weeks later, they buy a new Mustang convertible.
I,
Remember?
one of my greatest frustrations in the world when I was going through mortgage processes and tell people, please don't buy anything, don't unsettle the apple cart. And uh, you know what? They would literally go out and say, oh, but I didn't think it'd show up in my credit. I'm like, it shows as an inquiry. Now we have to explain it, right? So on the student loan issue, because I think Catalina is going to be calling in here at any moment now. I think that this is going to be one of the most timely uh, conversations we've had, because this student loan epidemic has become just that, an absolutely out of control epidemic. We're not going to change the way that colleges do business or banks necessarily, but how in the world do we help people navigate this enormous problem right now? And I couldn't be more excited to be able to have her get on. I'm really looking forward to this conversation today, Chris.
Yeah, I am too, Richard. And you know what? We're going to go ahead and bring her on to the show here in the next few minutes. So, everyone, hang tight. We'll be right back. Hey, it's Dr. Chris Heave, the Debt Doctor. Are you living paycheck to paycheck and burdened with overwhelming student loan debt, other debt, and financial uncertainty? Are you frustrated that you cannot seem to get ahead, hopeless that your financial predicament will never improve? Well, you don't have to live this way anymore. Let me ask you a crazy question. What if I could show you your exact debt-free date and how much time and money you could save without refinancing or restructuring your loans and without changing your budget or current lifestyle? Wouldn't it be wise to give this offer a very careful consideration? Here's the next step. Go to moneymaxnow.com and schedule your free discovery call to see if you qualify for our program. That's moneymaxnow.com. It's free. Look, we have helped so many people overcome their financial challenges with our financial GPS tool, and we can help you. So take advantage of this offer. Welcome back to Debt Doctor 911. My name is Dr. Chris Heave, the Debt Doctor. I'm here with Richard Schaefer, my good friend and financial expert. And boy, do we have a great special guest with us on this final segment of today's show. I would love to introduce to all of you, all of our listeners, the CEO of MyLoanSense, Catalina Kaiyoorowongs. Catalina, how are you?
I am well. Thank you for having me today.
She's just thrilled that you can say her name properly. That's going to get us a lot of street cred today, I'm telling
Yep.
you.
Let me tell you, I've been practicing that all morning. Okay, I've been actually
I can tell.
Pronouncing that to my dog, Steffi, who she's actually 10 years old today. My dog is 10 years old.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mine's 11, so I get it.
Right.
My daughter's 11. Does that count?
Anyway, so we're so excited to have Catalina on our show today because, as we talked about in our last segment, we had a special guest last week, Carlos Gutierrez, who is using our program to eliminate all of his debt and start that process of building wealth. But he is also utilizing MyLoanSense program, which is helping save him over $800 and change per month. And that is going to help accelerate the payoff of his other debt and also help in the process of building wealth. So, Catalina, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. And man, we spoke for a few minutes prior to coming back into the segment, and you are a pistol, man. I mean, you are as passionate as I am about educating the general public on, what the heck is going on here in regards to student loan debt, finances, how to afford a mortgage, improving your debt to income ratio. So before we dive into all these
Chris,
topics,
she's a Michigan gal. I mean, what do you expect? The only
I
the
knew
best,
you'd
my
throw
friend.
that in there, Richard. My God, doing that Michigan stuff. Anyway,
Peter's in the best. I'm pretty sure that's why we call it that.
Yeah, we don't. You people who don't go don't get it.
Exactly. That's right.
all right. So give us a kind of a background, if you can, Catalina, how you got involved in all this. What was it that lit the fire to get you started with this company? If you could just give our listeners kind of a brief overview of that. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
So what got me started was in 2014, I got denied from a lender despite having an 800 credit score for my first house. And the lender had very few answers, just said you have too much student loan debt, and some other factors. And the lender really made no attempt to explain to me what the solutions are, what I can do. And if I were the average American, I would have been demoralized and just thought, I guess I need to rent until I pay off my student loan debt. But since I, studied policy, I was like, I'm going to look into this because there has to be some rules. And luckily, 2014, Freddie and Fannie passed rules that if you enroll in federal programs, it would improve the debt to income and it wouldn't use your fully amortized student loan payment to count towards that debt to income. And thereby the result is if you have less debt, then you can afford more home. So I went back to my lender, educated my lender. And since then, I knew that there's so many more people my generation who are coming out, three out of four coming out with student loan debt that are impacted by this. And I don't believe that an education should hold us back from wealth building. That defeats the purpose of an education. So it became my greatest mission to figure out how to infuse like addressing financial services, whether it's financial planning or home buying, from the perspective of actually solving the largest pain point of our generation that is holding us back, which is student loan debt. It's delaying home ownership and home buying by 5 years. And that should not be the situation. And so I'm here to change that. I'm here to change it through partnerships, but I'm also here to change it through policy. And I want to get heard at the highest levels from political, policymakers, because it's important that we address these issues, or our generation, 80% of our wealth comes from the value of our home. And now we're losing 5 years of equity building. I bought my house in 2014. It's almost 4x in value. That's given me the financial freedom to start a company. That is not the luxury most 25-year-olds can say that they have, because they don't have the options, the knowledge, the insight, the know-how. And I want to change that.
You're not telling me you're only 25. There's no way.
No. When I was 25, I bought that house. I'm not currently 25, but most 25-year-olds, if they're told no, they're not going to push back and figure out what the rules are and figure out how to push back against the system. Someone says no, they accept it. And I'm not here to accept it today.
And Chris, I'm pretty sure that she got a lot of juice out of being able to go back to that lender and be like, let me school you for a second, my friend, and explain this. That's the way I get when I'm dealing with a lot of these self-proclaimed financial experts.
Richard, it brings me back to the days when I was going to medical school, and I was the editor of the school newspaper.
Oh, God.
And so we would publish this student newspaper every single month. I would have to go out and get all the advertisers. It was actually a great way to earn money to go on trips in between breaks, or in between school sessions. But the funniest thing is that we would actually write. You would have a section where you would write letters to the editor. And so people would submit letters to the editor, of which we would answer. But the funny part about it
There was
is
no email back then, Catalina. So,
we wrote the letters to the editors and therefore would answer our own letters. Okay. And that got us into a lot of trouble because we really raised a lot of hell, about the crap that was going on at our school. And it got me in front of the president of the school, which, would sit there, she was like probably in her 80s. And she would sit there and point her finger at me. And it was the only time I actually would be able to go back to her and explain to her, these are the issues that are going on in our school. Will you pay attention? So it just kind of brings me back.
So many rebels on this call.
Yeah. Anyway,
Go ahead, Chris.
So Catalina, you have this passion to get out and to educate people on obviously what's going on with student loan debt. I deal with doctors every single day that have unbelievable amounts of student loan. They look at them as death loans. They are worried to death how they're going to make, the payments, because they have to go out, hang their shingle, and start practicing, start generating income, and literally eat, Franken beans. Okay. I mean, for like the first 2 or 3 years, because they got all this debt and all this overhead. Tell our listeners, because a lot of them are doctors that are listening to this right now.
So let me tell you a story of a doctor who ended up investing in our company because he saved so much money. He's a radiation oncologist. And what happened was he enrolled in this federal plan during residency because he had $450,000 of debt, and he's not going to be able to make a $4,000 something payment when you're earning $55,000 in fellowship, right? In residency. So he enrolled in the federal program. But being a doctor, you're really busy. So he got notice, refile your paperwork. You have to file into the federal programs annually. He just forgot. He didn't do it in time. So guess what? $40,000 of interest that has been accruing capitalized. So his loan balance went from 450 to almost 500. And he freaked out. So he made extra payments because he freaked out. He was like, once he started working, he just freaked out that the interest was capitalizing. He didn't understand why capitalized, why the loan balance went up, why more interest is accruing. So he freaked out and made, like, he had saved $100-something thousand that he was going to use for a down payment on a house, because he was like, why am I living in this crappy rental after I'm making, a decent salary now? So he used all of that to just pay down his student loan debt, because he was like, I'm just going to get out of this crap as fast as possible. I don't know what's happening. But when he found LoanSense and he came to us, we said, no, number one, we can get that $100-something thousand back because it's considered an overpayment. You're in track to get loan forgiveness. So we understood the sequence. Let's refile your paperwork so that you're in the program again. We're going to ask for that $117,000 back. He couldn't believe it. He was like, no way, they're going to send that back. He got 4 checks from the US Treasury because he made 4 payments back for that $117,000. Wow. Then we've now managed all his paperwork. So he's on track to get $280,000 of loan forgiveness, and has 3 more years of getting certified by a nonprofit hospital system. And literally, he said, as soon as he gets his loans forgiven, he's going to seriously consider retirement because he's burning out. But listen to this. Meanwhile, he took that $117,000 plus more that he had saved since, because it took about 3 months to get the money back, plus some other things. So he had saved more money. And he bought his first 4-bedroom house, and he's buying his second house now. So his strategy, because we reduced his debt to income, now he can afford now his second house.
More purchasing power.
And he made a plan on how, like, buying a 3rd and 4th house before this 3-year mark is up. And he's thinking, I'll have enough monthly recurring revenue to support, to basically replace 75% of my doctor wages post-tax. He will be able to replace, and it's a whole different tax category. They don't tax your income the same way they tax your real estate income, because you have write-offs, right? Mm-hmm. So he basically learned all of that through us. And the point that I'm saying this is because our financial system today and financial planners do not understand that healthcare workers are burning out. They need alternative financial plans. They need ways and education on how to manage their tax burden, because if you're making $500,000 a year, you're also paying $200,000 to the government. How do you manage that tax burden? They need a financial education to be as skilled. They might be able to cure cancer, but they don't understand how to reduce the tax burden. They don't understand how to get their student loan debt down. They don't understand how to real estate plan. They don't understand all these things. So I'm saying this story because it's so vital to understanding the transformative financial outcomes this individual was able to have, because he did that. He was eating ramen. I'm going to just put every penny. And I said, for what? In 5 years, you won't have any student loan debt, when you could have gotten $280,000 of it forgiven and had multiple homes, right? And be able to build wealth and use the federal government loan forgiveness to help you build wealth, work for 3 more years, right? Do the things it takes to set yourself up financially. Just get a full understanding, because the idea of like debt is bad, let's just pay it off as soon as possible, works for debt that it cannot be forgiven. But if the
Right.
debt can actually be forgiven and you have a partner in crime that will manage your payments and that will manage your paperwork and will help you get the refunds back, help advocate for you. That's what we do here at LoanSense.
That's
So
incredible.
he's like a recurring customer. Like he
I
pays
hope he
for his
gave that
service on
$100,000 to invest in your company, because
well,
even
he
if
gave no, he gave us about 10,000, which is
Okay.
more than we asked him to pay, which was very generous. But the point is he pays us on an annual recurring basis to just manage all his paperwork. And it turns out that when he paid off a bunch of his loans prior, they misreported like early payments as non-payment. So he has all this derogatory hits
Yep.
on his credit score. And so he paid us to address that.
Wow.
Like there's a lot of different things we can manage around the student loan to help advocate and get you as an individual to that next level. So
Let me interject there for a second, Catalina, because one of the things you said is really powerful, and Chris and I have talked about this a lot. And really, one of our tags really is it's not just about getting out of debt. That's great, and there are cases that needs to be done in a certain manner. It's ultimately the end game is developing financial security, right? That's the absolute end game. So our whole focus is to convert debt to wealth, right? How do we come up with strategically advantageous ways to manage debt, reduce that load, and be able to direct more dollars towards other sorts of savings vehicles? And that's really at the cornerstone of everything that we teach. And so I think there's such an incredible fit there. Chris, we were talking, and maybe Catalina can talk about this a little bit. So that you were spot on about those in the medical field. As a financial planner advisor for 20 years, I can tell you they're brilliant, but they're just not educated in that area, right? They had to be very target and focused on their field. But that's why they were great clients for us. They had great resources, great income, but very little education. What would you say in terms of how does the methodology work? Not being too granular, I suppose, but going to somebody, let's say we sent you somebody tomorrow, or one of our listeners is like, wow, I really need that. Outside of that, in an ordinary manner, right? Because I'm still bantering about whether or not I'm going to introduce my ex-girlfriend to this great strategy, because she just graduated from dental school with almost 400 grand. I'm not sure I want to help her that much just yet. I have to think about that.
And you are ruthless.
No, I'm just kidding. But the point is, there's a
What's
lot
wrong
of
with you,
folks,
Richard?
there's a lot of folks that are just ordinary that have, a student. How does that look for sort of the average person? What does that timeline look like?
Walk through it. First of all, our idea, when I describe what we do, we're a digital student loan advisor, but we're literally turning student loan debt into equity building mortgages. Like we're literally dollar for dollar with the debt to income able to do that. So how it works, listen, you can go to a federal government website. You can go to all these free calculators online. You can do all kinds of stuff, right? That will let you estimate how much you can reduce your student loan payment by. That's not where LoanSense adds value. What LoanSense adds value is you answer 5 questions, you upload your student loans, we tell you the best plan. Where we add value is as soon as you purchase our service, we assign you a student loan advisor who will take your goals, your most pressing concerns, your financial goals, of course, your most pressing concerns, where you are with your student loans, which they'll get through our software. And they will basically ask you questions about what are your marital family plans? What are your work plans? Are you looking to transition jobs? Are you looking to move up in your career? We take a very holistic approach. And then based on that, we of course take the software inputs, but we may change the software input recommendations. We manage all your paperwork, and then we help answer all the planning questions you have about how to get to that financial goal. 75% of people come to us because they have a home buying goal. So we literally throw in their new monthly payment into the debt to income and basically build a home buying plan. How much do you have to save monthly? What's your budget? How much do you have to save monthly? Can you save monthly as a result? How much can you add to that now that we reduce your student loan payment? What other debts do you have? What do you have to pay first to lower that debt to income? What can you potentially afford? Like we answer all those questions, which a loan officer is supposed to do. Loan officers just don't understand the student loan piece and the change to debt to income. So we preempt any no's and we manage everything on the student loan side. We will even tell you what documents you need to get through underwriting and what documents your underwriter will need and what is the impact to your ability to qualify. So we will do all of that for the consumer. That's where we add value. After a person buys, having an individualized tailored session, it's impossible to build software to granularly analyze everybody's scenario, because everybody has different scenarios and different goals. We would love to work towards that, like GPS in the future. But in the meantime, if you buy, you get assigned that advisor who does that for you. And our advisors, come from, like, some are planners, some are prior bankers. They're extremely financially savvy. We have standard templates, what we work off of, and we share it as a team. But you're assigned to someone highly knowledgeable who's been trained in student loan policy, who understand the criteria, because we see many people and we share all these best practices. And we know the most top pressing questions. So we know how to get down to what it is that you need. And that is where we add value. You come in, answer the 5 questions, upload your loans. Once you sign up, we take that data in and we individualize what your plan is. And you have digital support for that year. If you want our ongoing continued filing support, you can buy our service year in, year out, and we will be there to answer all your questions. So let's say you get this legalese letter back from the servicer. You don't understand. You forward it to our customer support. And since everybody's forwarding their letters, we'll know that this is what we'll know preemptively, that this is a wave of letters coming to us, and we will answer those questions. So we're literally like your advisor in a pocket, so to say, that will help be here for when you have recurring questions.
Yeah, you're a virtual coach for the student loan industry. That's phenomenal.
Right. And then what we do is I release videos every week on YouTube on the latest updates, what's happening, the latest, like, most commonly asked questions we're getting. I upload that onto YouTube so people can follow our channel, get the latest and greatest. So any questions, okay, they just released this letter this coming week about a transfer of servicer. This is what it means. So I release a video, and I send out, once you join our customer list, we send out an email as well, every week with these updates. And of course, we update our YouTube channel and other things.
So interesting. So maybe we could recap something here. What would you say are the top 3 primary kind of takeaway benefits that you're able to help your clients realize on a consistent basis?
20 times savings on average, $20 saved for every $1 paid to us. That's one. Financial stress diminishes from like an 8 and 9 to a like 1 to 2. Like feeling like you're not doing this alone, feeling like you're going to commit these errors, feeling like you're going to screw yourself, feeling like, how am I supposed to have 200,000 of debt? They say it's going to get forgiven, but only X amount of people are getting it forgiven. So what am I doing wrong here? Right. Having someone to go to, that's the biggest value. Like, also, we give everybody a free plan. So about 60% of people that come into our app will actually save. If you can't save and you don't want the financial advisory side of it, don't buy our service. Like, that's it, right? We want to set expectations very clear. We want people to save. Our refund rates are almost nil because people don't buy our service if they're not going to save money, right? Of course, there's people that don't save but need help filing for whatever, getting out of default, or like there's some specific things where it's not a direct savings, but the benefit is like, I'm being chased by a debt collector. How do I stop this? The debt collector being a student loan debt, right? So there's like questions people come with that isn't necessarily correlated with like a savings specifically, but that they don't know how to deal with on their own. So we can assist with that. So the greatest value is, So, I mean, our generation aren't necessarily going to financial planners, but the greatest planner to get is one that understands how to solve the greatest pain point you have.
So, there's a really interesting thing you said that we're going to piggyback on for a moment, actually, because we're definitely going to have a part 2 of this on another occasion. There's no question about it, especially as we start interviewing more and more folks that have had, their firsthand experience utilizing your service. And that speaks volumes, obviously, to the audience. And, you mentioned, Chris, I'm sure you heard as well when she was talking about GPS, that the whole nature of how and why Dr. Heave and I even started this podcast was really financial literacy, of course, but it's also giving people that hope, because there's financial forecasting, literally being able to help them make better decisions with understanding how to maximize use of their money. And I'd say this is, Chris, going to be probably one of the most symbiotic relationships we could possibly have, because the entire core message of our whole business, right? The whole narrative is, how do we help people better manage their money, be better stewards of their money, get out of debt, and what she said, actually have the hope that they can reach these goals in the future. Most people, debt is such a big ocean; they just feel like they're overwhelmed in it, and they
Well,
just give in.
yeah, and especially with doctors, okay,
Yep.
with professionals that have went to graduate school that have taken on those loan debts, and now they're out in in society, hanging their shingle, working like hell, putting 60 hours in a week, 80 hours in a week. It's absolute insanity. And you're absolutely right, Catalina, about burnout. So many doctors, they go in with this thought process of, I have this talent. I want to focus all of my attention on patient care. That's what I do well. That's how that's what I live for. But then they have this nonsense over here, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate through all this. And here we have a big solution. Now, one of the questions I would love to ask you is in regards to the actual forgiveness
Yep.
Mm.
of the remaining balance. How does that work? I know there's three different forgiveness pathways: 10 years, 20, 25 years. Can you
Yep.
explain?
So if you work, yeah. So basically your monthly loan payment amount is based on a formula called discretionary income.
Yep.
Discretionary income is a formula that accounts for your family size, your marital status, your income. And it depends on the loan plan, right? Not to get in all the specific details, but anything above what discretionary income calculation says you can pay accumulates, and based on the plan, the government will, year after year, when you file on time, and this is why it's so important to file on time, is the government will say this bucket of money is on track to be forgiven, right? When you file year on year, like, okay, the bucket expands. You still hold that balance, which I just wrote a policy memo that's due today to the Department of Ed, that bucket of money should just be eliminated year in and year out. Why should the borrower be holding on to that gigantic balance that you're promising to forgive, but
Right.
then you guys screw it up, right? So the borrower should not be carrying the burden of debt. It should be the government. The government promised them, they did their part. Get rid of that, right?
Mhm.
But right now, for the meantime, the government says you borrow, carry that balance, even though it's in this bucket of money we're going to forgive. What happens ultimately, if you're a public servant, which you are if you work for a nonprofit hospital system, 85% of healthcare workers are nonprofit workers. What happens is that, what happens at the 120 payment mark is that we file at, by the way, we also have to certify employers every single year. So instead of you chasing after HR, we will send them e-sign documents, and also our software will complete the paperwork so your HR doesn't make errors, which disqualify you from those payments, which is a huge pain. So we take over that part. We send e-doc signatures to your HR. And after the 120 qualifying payments that is attached to you working at a nonprofit, plus you filing appropriately into these plans, then the government will eliminate the remaining balance, right? And of course, the greatest value is we teach you how between jobs, basically, if you rely on us to file year in and year out, between jobs, you can refile and get a year of $0 payment as well. So we strategize and understand what proof of income to submit, when to submit it. We strategize how to, if you're going towards forgiveness, how to get $0 payments and get the government to cover 50% of the balance year. Like, it's going to be forgiven totally, but at the end of that year, 50% of the balance will be forgiven. The remaining 50% will remain for 10 years on one of the plans, right? So we get you in the right plan. And basically, what we can allow a consumer to do is strategize how to minimize that payments to maximize forgiveness, file all the associated paperwork, remind you when to file all the associated paperwork, manage all your student loans on our dashboard that you can log on to, and help you succeed financially. So
what determines whether it's 10 or 15 or 20, 25? What's the general rule of thumb?
10% of your quote unquote discretionary income.
Got it.
And it's not capped by income either. So like, let's say you earn $400,000. It doesn't matter how much you earn. It's about what your debt to income is.
Right.
Right. So if you have a huge amount of debt, even if you have a high income, the government still considers the amount of debt you have in that discretionary income calculation. So they say 10% of whatever they say is the minimum expenditures you need. So I mean, I have a doctor, some doctors earning $400,000 that have a fully amortized payment of like $4,000 that are still able to get it down to like 2,000. So that frees up 2,000 of cash flow,
Wow.
right?
Wow, that would be huge for us, Chris. With what we
Right. So
suggest.
even from that perspective of earning a huge amount of money, it's not, you can still get the payment reduced based on how much student loan debt you have, not based on how much income. So it's not capped by income. There are some plans that are capped by income, but obviously in this case, we'd recommend one that's not capped by income.
Oh, that's Chris, that's some powerful stuff right there.
Yeah. So Catalina, explain also too, at that time, now I understand the 10-year, 120 payments, nonprofit, okay, organization that you're employed with. I understand all of that. You have to work a minimum of 30 hours a week to, I think, be accepted into a program like that.
Right.
Let's talk about the other programs where, you go for 20 years, you're making a specific payment every single month. I call it really not a debt payment. I call it a monthly expense, to be honest with you. That's just a psychological concept, within a doctor's mind, is that I'd rather have a monthly expense than an actual debt payment. But literally after those 20 years, you're going to have a balance, okay, that you still is going to be forgiven, but that doesn't take away the possibility of the IRS going, well, we're going to go ahead and tax you on that.
So Biden has waived, the Office of Management of Budget has waived collecting any taxes from loan forgiveness into 2025. They believe that that's a precedent that's being set to not tax any form of loan forgiveness in the future. That hasn't been promised, or software does indicate the tax liability you will potentially incur. Obviously, we don't know dollar for dollar because we don't know how much exactly you're going to make next year, the following year, but we estimate it for you. I would call it a loan forgiveness insurance to obviously save, right? Whatever we tell you, divide by the number of payments you have left, make sure to save that. But meanwhile, you can invest it in the market. You can invest it in other things, right? You can still invest that money, have it as a loan forgiveness insurance, and recognize that may need to be paid out. But the way the legislation is looking is that the government is not going to expect to collect that, but it's not promised yet in legislation. But
well, I mean, even at that, I mean, you'd have a tax, but it'd still be significantly less than the amount of liability you'd have to pay. So,
oh yeah, it's way less. It's way less. It depends on your income bracket.
So, Chris, what would be the call to action? I mean, we're definitely going to figure out a way to pin Catalina down and get her on another subsequent podcast. There's no question about it, and to even a unique audience that we can market this to. But what would be the call to action in terms of where folks, Chris, can get more information about this and be able to hopefully utilize their services?
Yeah, Richard, like Catalina said, the first thing is to get an analysis done. Okay, it costs you nothing to find out exactly what this program can do for you. So everyone, make sure you get a pen and piece of paper. Write this down. Go to slpayoff.com. That's www.slpayoff.com. And all you have to do, like she said, is just enter a few data points. And then they will put together multiple different options, okay, that you can take a look at and see exactly where you can save, how you can save, what your potential monthly payment would be, okay, and then you can go from there. That's the best thing to do, just like what we do with our program. If you want to know your exact debt-free date, if you want to know how much money you can save in interest, we always do a free payoff analysis. Okay, so this is a great way, an unbelievable opportunity. I'm telling you, I'm so psyched about this program because it's going to give our listeners hope. I mean, hope, man, let me tell you something. When doctors know they have the biggest fear doctors have when they come out of school, okay, is how am I going to pay off my student loan debt? And then how am I going to save money to retire? Okay, what's my exit strategy? Okay, I know there's a lot of doctors out there, especially in my profession, that say I'm going to practice, until I'm 80 or 90 years old. My answer to that is why? I mean, come on. I mean, I retired at age 50. I got the heck out of what I was doing because guess what? I was sick and tired of being sick and tired and overwhelmed with paperwork. Okay. And all the BS you put up with when you deal with insurance companies.
That has nothing to do with patient care.
No, exactly. So I had lost really my passion to help my patients. I had 11,000 patient base, Richard. It was insane. And
Wow.
2 offices and a ton of overhead. And I was just sick and tired of it, because when you get paid 30 cents on the dollar, okay, for the services you provide, eventually after so many years, you're like, what the hell am I doing in this profession?
Well, Chris, that's what Catalina was talking about, that a lot of people don't factor, right, Catalina, that there is that burnout. It's that you don't have this, you're like an athlete almost. You don't have this 30, 40-year time horizon. You might have, 10, 15 years where a lot of them really start banking up that door. I know we're coming in on our time here, Chris, but I got to say personally, I'm incredibly excited. I'm fortunate that we had a chance to meet you, Catalina, last year. And I really see some extraordinary things. I think there's a lot of great ways that we can help each other and obviously do some amazing things for the consumer and give them a better path, because, it's not even about vilifying the government or the banks. It's about, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. So our goal is, how do we help people understand these strategies, to embed them, and to be able to take full advantage of all the opportunities that exist to benefit them in a big way. So you're such an important part of that puzzle. I'm so thrilled that we've met you.
Thank you. Can I just say one final message?
Absolutely.
If you're a public servant, you work for a nonprofit, your servicer is going to probably be transferred in December. It's very important that you start to certify your payments, if you haven't already, and file the associated paperwork ASAP before October ends. Additionally, if you already work for a nonprofit and you have never certified into these loan programs, you will lose this 20 months of $0 payments to count towards loan forgiveness. So you could literally get this time we haven't paid counted towards loan forgiveness if you file into the program. So it's very pertinent to do this ASAP, especially before the servicers transfer. Because they're not going to service Fed Loan, who's the main public service loan forgiveness servicer, is no longer going to be servicing student loans. There's an urgency to act, to get the longer you wait, the more mistakes you make, the more costly managing your student loan debt is going to be. So get a plan early. People ask us, is it too early? I'm just graduating. No, it's never too early, right? Knowing what is coming up next and learning as much as possible, as early as possible. You don't have to remember all the details. Remember, you can always reach back out to our customer support. It's about knowing when to reach out, even if you don't remember the details, okay? And we're here to support you on the journey. And we're 100% about creating better outcomes. And that's what our business is about. So we don't want anyone to leave unsatisfied. So we welcome you to start absolutely for free. And then you decide, if this is something you're interested in pursuing. Thank you.
What does that turnaround time look like normally when they first do their analysis, or they submit for that consult? What is that turnaround time to get an idea what those results might look like? What's that?
The results they get immediately.
Really? Okay.
It's software driven. The results they get immediately. The consult depends on their schedule, right? Okay. It depends on their schedule, and of course, loan advisor schedules as well, right? So, but the calendars are all the loan advisors' calendars are synced. So you'll see all the available times, and you just choose right there. So the turnaround time depends on the client's schedule, but they get the free plan right then and there.
Awesome. Well, Chris, this was definitely one of the more exciting guests that we've had, and I'm really looking forward to developing a long-term relationship. I really appreciate her even taking the time with us today, and she's definitely passionate about what she does, and as we are. And I think it's a great sign that you have some people sort of rising up, if you will, to start really being a stand for the consumer in a way that we haven't seen in a long time.
Absolutely. Catalina, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today. Great information. This is, I cannot wait to get this out to all of our listeners and also to all the doctors that I interact with. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And everyone, that's going to do it for this episode of Debt Doctor 911. Until next time, let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. We'll see you next time, everyone. Take care.
Softy,
I know I am. Thank you so much for listening to Debt Doctor 911. We hope that this episode has helped you transform the way you think, giving you new ideas, and provided you a new perspective on the desire to eliminate all of your debt and build wealth, so you can get out there and create the financial freedom you and your family deserve. If you would like to know your exact payoff date, and see what our program can do for you, just go to moneymaxnow.com to schedule your free payoff analysis. That's moneymaxnow.com. Our podcast is for informational purposes only. The purpose of this podcast is to provide you with helpful information on the subjects discussed. Careful attention has been paid to ensure the accuracy of the information, but we cannot assume responsibility for the validity or consequences of its use. As each individual situation is unique, we disclaim responsibility for any adverse effects that may result from the use or application of the information discussed on this podcast. Any use of the information from this podcast is the sole responsibility of the listener. Results will vary based on an individual personal financial situation. All time and interest saving examples on this podcast are strictly hypothetical. Individual time and interest savings amounts are subject to individual qualification. No financial advice or recommendations have been made as a part of this podcast. We encourage you to seek the advice of a financial professional. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a second to rate and review. Each review helps us help more people just like you make a difference in this world. Don't forget to take a screenshot, share it in your Instagram stories, and tag us at The Debt Doctor. That's TheDeBTDR. And at FinPro Advisors. That's FinProAdvisors. Finally, always remember, let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. See you next week.